Good day, everyone, and our topic for this day is about quadratic inequalities. When we say quadratic inequality, it is an inequality in one variable with one unknown of degree of 2. We have the symbols less than or equal, greater than, and greater than or equal. These are used to denote the quadratic inequality. Which of the following is a quadratic inequality? We have 3x squared plus 2x minus 8 greater than 0. Obviously, this is a quadratic inequality. It is because when we base the definition of the quadratic inequality, we have one variable. It has degree of 2 and there is a inequality symbol in which we have greater than. And then we have x squared plus 2x less than or equal to 3. Obviously, this is a quadratic inequality. Next, so we have 6x squared plus 7 greater than 3y. This is not a quadratic inequality. Okay, it's because we have two variables present in this inequality. And we have 8 minus x squared greater than x. Obviously, this is a quadratic inequality. Okay, and then we have 2x squared plus 5x plus 3 equals 0. In this given, this is not a quadratic inequality. This is a quadratic equation. Now, which of the following quadratic inequalities is in general a form? So we have three quadratic inequalities and we have to identify which among them is in general form. When we say general form, all the terms are placed on one side of the equation and then the other side is a 0. Okay, so obviously, the quadratic inequality that is in general form is the first given, 3x squared plus 2x minus 8 greater than 0. Because all the terms are placed on one side of the inequality and then the other is 0. Okay. In general form of quadratic inequalities, just like in quadratic equation, we have in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. And then instead of equals in quadratic equation, in quadratic inequalities, of course, we have inequality symbols where a, b, and c are real numbers and a should not be equal to 0. So here are the inequality symbols. This time, we are going to solve the quadratic inequalities. In solving the quadratic inequalities, we have what we call the critical numbers, the test intervals, and the test numbers. When we say critical numbers, these are the roots of the corresponding quadratic equation of the quadratic inequality. Okay, that means we are going to solve for the roots of the given quadratic equation. We are going to transform the given into an equation in such that after this, we are going to solve for the roots using any methods depende sa given. Pwedeng completing the square, pwede quadratic formula, or pwede rin yung factoring if it is factorable. Okay, and then we have the test intervals. These intervals into which the critical numbers divide the real number line. Okay, so we are going to divide in the real number line. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. We are going to divide the real number line by the critical numbers. And we have the test numbers. This is any number taken from the test intervals and are substituted to quadratic inequality to determine if the interval is a solution or not. This means kukuha tayo ng isang number mula sa test interval and yung mga numbers na yun ay mag-represent ng intervals natin to see if the intervals na makukuha natin ay solutions para sa given quadratic inequalities. To understand this, let us have a first example. Example number 1. What are the values of x for the inequality x squared minus 2x minus 15 greater than or equal to 0? Let us interpret this question. Ano daw yung values ng x na kapag sinubstitute daw natin dito sa ating inequality, it should satisfy with greater than or equal to 0. Meaning, dapat yung makukuha natin sagot dito ay positive. Included yung 0. Okay, so ano daw yung mga values ng x kapag sinubstitute daw natin dito sa ating trinomial, dapat ay greater than or equal to 0. We have x squared minus 2x minus 15 is equal to 0. To get the roots of the equation, okay, so you may use factoring, completing the square, or quadratic formula. But since our given here is factorable, therefore we may use factoring. Okay, so to factor this, so we have two sets of open and closed parentheses, then equate it to 0. Then we have x and then x. Then let us find the factors of negative 15 na kapag pinag-plus, ang sagot is negative 2. So obviously, we will have minus 5 and plus 3. Then equals 0. Paghiwalay natin yung dalawang factors, we will have x minus 5 equals 0. And then x plus 3 equals 0. So x here is equal to positive 5. Okay, and then we will have x is equal to yung positive 3, manilipat magiging negative 3. Okay, so yung 5 and negative 3 na yan ay tatawagin nating critical numbers. Okay, and then after getting the critical numbers, let us draw a number line in which itong mga numbers na to ay mag-represent ng values ng x for our inequality. Okay, so we have this given, and the critical numbers that we have here is 5 and negative 3. So let us locate 5 and negative 3. Okay, so this is a negative 3. And then this is positive 5. Okay? So please be reminded na kapag meron tayong given na ganyan, we have a less than or equal, greater than or equal, we are going to use a closed point. Okay? Closed point. Okay? And then kapag meron tayong less than and greater than, walang equal to, we are going to use an open point. Okay? Based on our given, ang given natin is greater than or equal. So therefore, we are going to put closed point doon sa ating critical numbers, the 5 and negative 3. So in here, okay, this is a 3 and this is positive 5. So hahatiin natin yung ating number lines sa 3 parts. This is the first part, second part, and third part. In our first part of our number line, we have this interval in which ang pinakamataas is negative 3. And the negative 3, pababa. Okay? So, kapag pababa, papunta tayo sa negative infinity. Okay? So, we will represent this interval as, okay, so again, these are the values of x. So we have x, and then the highest number present in this interval is a negative 3. Okay, so again, ito yung mga values ng x. And since yung mga values ng x natin is pababa, papunta kay negative infinity, therefore we are going to use less than or equal to. Okay? Wherein, ang boundary natin for this interval ay kay negative 3. Okay? Next, for the second part, ang boundaries niya ay naka negative 3 and positive 5. Okay? So, ito yung mga values ng x. Included yung ating critical numbers. So, to represent the interval, we have x, since again, ito yung mga values ng x. And then, ang ating boundaries is a negative 3, or yung limit, tapos yung isa ay 5. Okay, from the values of x here, ang mga values ng x natin dito ay mas mataas kay negative 3. So, we are going to use a less than or equal. Okay, but we are going to read this as x is greater than or equal to negative 3. Okay, and then we have this also with respect to 5. Yung mga values ng x dito ay mas pababa kay 5. Okay, so we are going to use less than or equal to 5. X is greater than or equal to negative 3 and less than or equal to 5. Okay, so next, we have the third part, okay, in which ang boundary natin dito is 5 and 5 pataas. Okay, so yung mga values ng x natin dyan ay pataas kay 5. So we have x is greater than or equal to 5. Again, pataas mula kay 5. Okay, kapag meron tayong equals to do sa ating given, ibig sabihin included dun sa interval natin yung negative 3 and positive 5. Others represent this interval as this. Okay, so we will represent this as ang boundary natin ay naka negative 3 and papunta kay negative infinity. Okay, and then dito, ang boundary natin, or yung limit natin dito ay naka negative 3 and positive 5. So, we have negative 3, and then do sa other part, or the other side ng ating interval, we have a 5. Okay, and then merong bracket. And then for the last, we have 5 here. Ibig sabihin, si 5 ay included dun sa ating interval and then papunta siya sa positive infinity. Okay, and then closed parenthesis. Okay, so you may use this or this way of representing inequalities. Next, when we have the inequality of the intervals dito sa ating number line, okay, so let us now solve if these intervals are the values of x for the given inequality. So, for our critical intervals or the test intervals, isusulat natin. So, pwede kayo mamili kung ito ang gagamitin ninyo, yung first or pwede yung pangalawa. So, in here, gagamitin ko yung una. We have x is less than or equal to negative 3. And then we have the negative 3 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 5. X is greater than to negative x is greater than or equal to negative 3 and less than or equal to 5. And then we have also x is greater than or equal to 5. And then we are going to get one test point for every test interval. Okay, so for the first part, kuha tayo ng any number from negative 3 pababa. Okay, so kung ako, pipiliin ko yung negative 10. X is equal to negative 10. Okay, so this is my test point for this interval. Okay, and then for the interval of this, mamili ako ng number from negative 3 to positive 5. So in here, gagamitin ko x is equal to 0. In here, I'm going to choose x is equal to 7 or any number. X is equal to 7. Okay, so after na makuha din natin ang mga test numbers, we are going to test it. Okay, and then judge kung ito ba ay magsasatisfy dito sa ating inequality. Okay, since itong trinomial na to ay equal sa factored form na x minus 5 and x plus 3, yun ang gagamitin natin sa solutions. So, therefore, we will have x minus 5 and x plus 3. Okay, itong factored form nito ay ito. Okay, and then greater than or equal to 0. And then substituting the test number, negative 10. So we have negative 10 minus 5 and then negative 10 plus 3. Negative 10 minus 5, we have negative 15. Okay, and then we will have negative 7, then greater than or equal to 0. So, we have here positive 105 greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so is 105 greater than or equal to 0? Mas mataas ba ang 105 kaysa 0? Yes. Okay, so therefore, this inequality is true. Next, how about this? If x is equal to 0, so we have 0 minus 5 and then we have 0 plus 3 greater than or equal to 0. 0 minus 5, we have negative 3 times 0 plus 3 equals positive 3, then greater than or equal to 0. Negative 5 times 3, we have negative 15 greater than or equal to 0. So, is a negative 15 greater than or equal to 0? No. So therefore, this interval does not satisfy for this inequality. So this is false. Next, we have here x is equal to 7. 7 minus 5, then 7 plus 3 greater than or equal to 0. So 7 minus 5 we have 2, then 7 plus 3 we have 10 greater than or equal to 0. 2 times 10 equals 20 greater than or equal to 0. Okay, is 20 greater than or equal to 0? Yes. Okay, mas malaki si 20 kaysa kay 0. So this is true. Okay, so therefore, kukunin natin ngayon yung mga test intervals na nag-satisfy dun sa ating given quadratic inequality. For our final answer, kailangan yung solutions natin or yung mga values ng x, it should be enclosed by braces. And then we have x is the element of all real numbers such that x is less than or equal to negative 3 and x is greater than or equal to 5. Or, pwede pong isulat siya as, ito, yung second interval natin. We have negative infinity, and then negative 3. Okay? And then, yung isa, itong part na ito, and yung part na ito, papunta sa positive, and papunta sa negative infinity. Okay, so ang boundary natin na kay 5, itong susundan natin. Okay. And then merong close parenthesis. Okay, and then the union of these intervals. So these are now the final answers. Example number 2. What are the values of x for the inequality 2x squared plus 13x less than to negative 15. Again, we are going to get the values of x in such as kapag sinubstitute natin siya dito sa ating inequality, it should satisfy na mas bababa siya sa negative 15. To solve for this, we have to transform the given inequality into an equation. We have here 2x squared plus 13x then equals negative 15. And then transpose natin ang negative 15 dun sa kabila para magkaroon tayo ng general form of equation. So we have 2x squared plus 13x then plus 15 then equals 0. Since our given is factorable, then factor natin. Then we have 2x and then x plus 3 and then plus 5. Okay, and then equate each factor to 0. So we have 2x plus 3 equals 0. Then x plus 5 equals 0. So in here, x is equal to, lipat natin si positive 3, magiging negative 3. We have 2x here. Okay, so hindi mawawala. And then the other one, we have x is equal to, yung positive 5, lipat natin magiging negative 5. So, x is equal to negative 3 over 2. And then we have negative 5. Okay, so negative 3 over 2 and a negative 5 are the critical numbers for this inequality. Okay, and then, since ang given natin is a less than, we are going to use open point. Okay, so let us locate negative 3 over 2 and negative 5 to our numbered line. So kapag meron tayong negative 3 halves, pwede siyang isulat as negative 1.5. So we have 0 and then we have negative 1 and this is negative 1.5. Okay, so lalagay tayo ng open point. Okay, open point. And this is negative 1.5. Okay, and then we are going to locate negative 5. So this is our open point for negative 5. Okay, so from this critical number, hahatiin natin siya dun sa ating number line. To get the interval for the first part of the number line, Okay, as you can see, yung mga values ng x natin is pababa, papunta sa negative infinity. Okay, so ang values ng x natin dito is mas mababa kay negative 5. So we have less than 5. Okay? Dito sa values ng x natin, hindi kasama yung negative 5. Pero kasama ang negative 5.001, negative 5.002, yung mga numbers na malapit dito kay negative 5 ay kasama. Pero pag eksaktong negative 5, okay, hindi po ko siya kasama sa ating interval. In our second part, yung may boundary natin ay naka-negative 5 and negative 1.5. Yung mga numbers na nandito sa between negative 5 and negative 1.5 ay yung mga solutions dito sa second part ng number line. So, we are going to represent it as x is greater than negative 5 and less than negative 1.5. Okay? And then for the last part or the third part of the number line, we have x here. Okay, so yung mga points natin dito ay mas matataas na kay negative 1.5. We have 5, 10, 100, 200, 102, and so on. So yung x natin dyan is greater than negative 1.5. Kapag meron tayong less than or equal, hindi kasama yung ating critical numbers. Okay, so another way of writing this, we will have, okay, so open parenthesis, we have 5, and then dun sa kabilang side, we are going to negative infinity. Okay, next, dito naman, yung nasa loob naman nito, we have open and close parenthesis, negative 5 and negative 1.5. Okay, so yung nasa loob daw, or yung mga numbers between negative 5 and negative 1.5 are the solutions for this or yung mga values ng x for this interval. Again, hindi kasama doon sa interval na yon ang negative 5 and negative 1.5. Okay, and then in this part, yung third part natin, okay, so magsisimula tayo sa negative 1.5. Yung mga points na katabi ng negative 1.5 ay kasama. Okay, papunta sa right. Okay, papunta sa positive number. So, ilalagay natin dito is positive infinity. Okay, so kahit anong paraan na pagsusulat ng inequalities, still isa pa rin makukuha nating sagot. And to solve for this, again, we are going to write the test intervals. Okay, so pwedeng yung first intervals ang gagamitin natin or yung second intervals. But this time, I'm going to use the first one. We have x, then we have here x is greater than negative 5 but less than negative 1.5. Okay, and then yung isa is x is greater than negative 1.5. Okay, and then let us get the test numbers from the test intervals. So, pili tayo. Okay, this is negative 5. Okay, this is a negative 5. Ito ay negative mula sa ating given. And then, mula sa ating test interval, kukuha tayo ng number na mas mababa sa negative 5. In here, kukunin ko x is equal to negative 10. Okay? So, for the second interval, gagamitin ko x is equal to, okay, dapat nasa pagitan ng negative 5 and negative 1.5. So, in here, gagamitin ko ang negative 3. Okay? And then, in this part of the interval, pipili ako ng number mula sa negative 1.5 pataas. Ang gagamitin ko naman, x is equal to positive 5. Okay? So, yung negative 10, negative 3, and positive 5. To test if the intervals na nakuha natin ay part ng solutions for the values of x, let us substitute the test numbers to the inequality. So, ang katumbas neto, okay, is we have yung factored form 2x plus 3 and then x plus 5. Okay, and then ang inequality natin is less than. Okay, since yung negative 50 natin ay nilipat na dito sa kabila, ay nakuha natin yung factored form niya, which is ito. So, nalagay natin dito is 0. Okay, so kapag 0, dapat i-expect natin na magiging negative yung number natin dito once i-substitute natin negative 10 dito sa factored form ng trinomial. So, we will have 2 times a negative 10. Okay, and then plus 3. Okay, and then negative 10 plus 5. And then less than 0. 2 times a negative 10, that is 20. That is a negative 20. Negative 20 plus 3, that is a negative 17. Okay, so times negative 10 plus 5, we will have negative 5 less than 0. We will obtain 85 less than 0. Si 85 ba ay mas mababa kay 0? No. So therefore, it is false. Okay, next, let us try negative 3 in this interval. So we have 2 times a negative 3 plus 3. Okay, and then we have also negative 3 plus 5, then less than 0. 2 times negative 3 equals negative 6. Negative 6 plus 3 is equal to negative 3. Okay, and then negative 3 plus 5 equals positive 2, then less than 0. Negative 3, negative 3 times 2 equals negative 6, less than 0. Okay, so nung nasolve natin siya, is a negative 6 less than 0. Is a negative 6 less than 0. Yes, so this is true. Okay, next, for the last interval, we have x is equal to 5. So we have 2 times 5 plus 3. Okay, and then times 5 plus 5, then less than 0. So 2 times 5, that is 10 plus 3 equals 13. Okay, and then times 5 plus 5 equals 10, then less than 0. 13 times 10 equals 130, less than 0. Okay, so let us see if it is true or false. Ang 130 ba ay mas mababa sa 0? No. So, therefore, it is false. So, after doing this, kunin natin yung interval na nag-true or nag-satisfy dito sa ating given inequality. Therefore, the values of x, or x is the element of all real numbers such that x should be greater than negative 5 but less than negative 1.5. Or, pwede rin siyang isulat as a solution of negative 5 and negative 1.5 with open and closed parentheses. And these are now the final answers. Let us have your practice. I do hope that you learned something today about quadratic inequalities. We have 3 items for you to solve. Pause this video for 10 minutes to solve this practice. To end this, I want to share one quote from William Paul Thurston. Mathematics is not about numbers, equations, computations, or algorithms. It is about understanding. Thank you and God bless.